Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be going over probably the last build of the cycle, as the Path of Exile League is coming to fruition in about a week and a half, meaning I'm going to have to start working on that and be gone from last Epoch for about a month or two, something like that. Now, this build is going to be a Stygian coil build. So the concept is to replace Drain Life with Stygian Coil, where it shoots out a bunch of beams, and those beams scale with intelligence and also mana. This makes it so that you can do a very large amount of damage in a very short amount of time. You can stack a bunch of Drain Lives on top of each other with the Dark Shackle node, making it so that, you become an absolute machine gun. Now, this build's fun and all, and the version that I'm playing right now is a Warlock. We're going to be doing Poison and Damned at the same time. That's because we get a lot of generic scaling through our idols and through our gear by stacking intelligence, meaning we get a lot of percentage damage, meaning that we can just use whatever we want. So we use as much poison chance as possible, and we use as much necrotic damned chance as possible. And this combined has led us to hit well over 1.5 million ticks on the dummy already with this bitch basic gear that I've thrown together, as I am completely broke after, dealing with the Beastmaster. And I'm probably going to be broke for the foreseeable future, as trade is probably going to die when the Path of Exile League starts, or at least when the patch notes drop, meaning that I'm going to have to go focus my attention elsewhere, right? So overall, the gear is pretty it's like good enough, right? It's the vessel setup like you'd normally have. Now, the biggest problem that I was having with this build was I was watching a lot of other people play with it. Normally, I usually stick away from builds that other people are playing, mainly because there's so many builds I could be playing in last epoch that it makes no sense for me to stepping on other people's toes. I can sure, there's like 20 people playing Falconer, but there's like nobody playing Forge Guard. I'm like, okay, well, we can play Forge Guard, yada, 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 stuff like that, right? But this time around, it's a little different. I saw Volca playing with the Poison Stygian Coal build on Lich, and I wanted a piece of that action. I really did. A very, very sexy rattling gun action. I really wanted to be a part of it, and to do that, I needed to play with my Warlock. And the problem is, Lich has a lot of benefits. You get Death Seal, you get Lich Form, you get all these nice things for being a Lich. And Warlock definitely doesn't have those kind of nice things. It doesn't have the survivability, doesn't have the damage, but Warlock has something that Lich does not. So a few of my friends and I have been theory crafting Stygian coil setups ever since the bugs were fixed on the build. And one of the hallmarks, one of the biggest discoveries that we found, other than the Wandering Spirits tech that Chuckles found on stream, we were actually talking about it, and he realized that you could utilize Wandering Spirits on off cooldown so that you can generate a bunch of mana. Same thing with Transplant, right? But that's not actually what we're going to be talking about today, although that is a very cool tech and allows this build to function. Thank you, Mr. Chuckles. So what actually makes this build function very well is one of the biggest problems with the Lich version is if you are being assaulted by a very large amount of mobs very quickly, you don't really have too much defense against that. So for instance, if a bunch of little spiders attack you, you don't have too many ways of defending yourself, because guess what? You are essentially a single target build with all these little lasers, right? Now, of course, with the frequency, it gets much better and much better, but you can still get overwhelmed, and your clear is good enough, right? Obviously, once you have overwhelming damage with Death Seal and stuff like that on the Lich form, it's not that bad. But Warlock has Lich beat here. Why is that? Well, there is a node inside Profane Veil. I think it's like Mark of the Rat or something like that. And whenever you apply Mark for Death in any way, shape, or form, doesn't have to be with Profane Veil here, it can just be global, right? If you apply Mark for Death, that means that you will spread 5 to 5 enemies nearby all your stacks of Damned and all your stacks of Poison. That is insanely synergistic with what we're doing. Now, normally, getting Mark for Death is pretty hard in most cases, but we're playing a necrotic skill. And since we're playing a necrotic skill, we have access to Mortality's Grasp. Mortality's Grasp reads it has a 45% chance to apply Mark for Death on hit with necrotic skills. This pair of gloves has been in the game for a very, very long time now. I have no idea how long it's actually been in the game. I'd have to go check. But turns out, uh, these are really strong with Profane Veil. It took very a long time to make these viable, but now they are. I was able to snipe a 3LP one off the market for like, I think like a few 100k gold, and then slammed a pair of gloves in it and tried to get something useful, which I did. And then, of course, with the normal setup, right, we want the health regen, the intelligence, stuff like that, because we're running Vessel for our defensive layers, because I'm too lazy to set up low life, and I don't think low life is even worth it on this build, considering that half of our damage is damned and half of our damage is poison, meaning that we don't even benefit too hard from damned overload. Damned overload is nice and all, but it's not really required. So Mortality's Grasp, what will happen is as our Stygian beams are like shooting things and they apply Mark for Death with a 45% chance, this just reads 45% chance to spread 5 poisons and 5 dam stacks to nearby enemies. That is really, really, really good. I think EHG kind of went a little bit overboard with all of these like ailment spread nodes. I think they're fun. I think they're cool. They're a very interesting way of making certain things work, but they're definitely what I would call overtuned. The game has been kind of gravitating towards this kind of power creep, and with this patch, it just pushed it right over the edge. I'm not entirely sure how they could balance this without making it unfun, because I will say playing a build like this is very fun and very satisfying after playing something like Doo-Doo, like that Tempest Strike Beastmaster I was trying to play, which, by the way, there are good Tempest Strike Beastmasters out there, just not the one I was playing, right? Not the one I invested 40 million gold into. But my problem is, how do they go about nerfing this without making it unfun, right? I like the spread, I like the drain life stuff, I like the Stygian coal stuff. I feel rewarded for investing a large amount of currency into my build because, I need a lot of flat mana, I need a lot of intelligence, I need a lot of damage over time, I need a lot of mana sustain, I need to use my wandering spirits, I need to use my transplant constantly. I feel like as though it's fair, but at the same time, it just looks so ridiculous looking back on the footage. I don't know how they would keep this in the game, man. Uh, I don't know. EHG might have changed their views on terms of like what is overpowered and what is not. But back in the day, like Static Orb, when Static Orb Orbit was a thing, that was just nerfed into the ground like instantly. And this is giving off very bad vibes when it comes to that. This is definitely one of those things where I think they will try to destroy it in some way because it is way too much damn fun. Like, it is way, way, way too much damn fun. I am having way too much fun with this to the point where, like, I'll be honest, it kind of makes me not want to play another build this patch because I want to like leave this patch off in a great way. And thankfully, the Path of Exile League is coming to save me. But like I still think that they should probably do something about ailment spread. They probably should do something about Stygian coil. Now that it's bug fixed, it's actually really good. It turns out maybe half like the frequency or something like that. Now the problem is the channeled version of Drain Life with the Stygian coil is absolute garbage, while Dark Shackles version of Stygian coil is really good, right? So they need to find a way to make the channeling version better because the stats that the item has currently aren't really worth it for channeling. So with all that being said, this has been Dread. There will be a full build guide on this in the next few days. Bye!